Ave Maris Stella.
Hello and welcome back to Vatican II in a Year. This is your host, Father Matthew Schneider. I am a priest of the Legionaries of Christ, and I teach theology. This is a podcast on the StarCrest Production Network at sqpn.com. Today we're on day 213, recovering Apostolicum Axiositatum, the document on the lay apostolate, and recovering paragraph 11 on duties in one's family. If you want to follow along, we have a reading plan and more details at sqpn.com/Vatican and frmatthewlc.com/Vatican. Yesterday, we spoke about how lay people carry out a wide variety of apostolate, but this is within their wider vocation, union with the church structures like parishes. Today, we're going to continue with chapter 3 on the various fields of apostolate, and we're going to focus on marriage to the family as an important lay apostolate, which we should support and defend. So let's get straight into it. We are covering just paragraph 11 today. There's only one paragraph, but this paragraph has 6 subparagraphs, which we'll read in 4 groups. So paragraphs A and B talk about how God set up marriage and the family so couples can cooperate with grace. C talks about how couples need to witness to true Christian marriage and fight for the family in politics in the civil society. I think it says civil society specifically, but that would mean a lot of times politics and things like that. D, the family is the unit of society, and they can do many apostolates together. And then E and F, families should remain faithful and can be brought together. So let's get straight into paragraphs A and B. 11a. Since the Creator of all things has established conjugal society as the beginning and base of human society, and by His grace has made it the great mystery in Christ and the Church, confer Ephesians 5, the apostolate of marriage, persons, and families is of unique importance for the Church and civil society. B. Christian husbands and wives are cooperators in grace and witnesses of faith, for each other, their children, and all others in their household. They are first to communicate the faith to their children and to educate them by word and example for the Christian apostolic life. They prudently help them in the choice of their vocation and carefully promote any sacred vocation which they may discern in them. So that's the paragraph, right? There is this plan of marriage. It's the base of human society. And there is a relative equality in marriage. We have husband and wife. It's not like the husband is the Lord and master over them. Now, obviously, it's not a perfect equality. The husband does have, the last say in a certain sense. And this is modeled on Christ and the church because we have Christ and the church as the perfect model. Christ is the husband. This church is the bride of Christ. There's a whole, a priest I know did a whole doctoral thesis on the idea of priest as bride of the church because we are in the person of Christ in that aspect. And that's a very interesting way to look at it. And this idea of Christ and the church makes it a sacrament. If 2 pagans get married, it is a natural marriage. It's a good thing. But by being Christians baptized, we do it in modeling after Christ and the church and it becomes a sacrament. Even non-Catholic marriage, as long as the church that people are part of recognize it, whether it's Orthodox, Protestant, etc. And there's an apostolate to promote marriage and of marriage coupled. We have a lot of apostolates to promote marriage. We have things like marriage prep, marriage renewal evenings. We'll often have some kind of talk on that and then Mass where they renew their vows or something. There's certain kind of weekend retreats for struggling couples. There is how we prepare people in high school and college. I remember reading the biography of Father Paul Marks, autobiography of Father Paul Marks, the founder of HLI, Human Life International. And he, before that, was a professor at Catholic college, and he taught a class, psychology, which was like psychology of marriage or something like that. And it was almost like a pre-marriage preparation class, and it was like the most popular class there. And that was a wonderful thing. And he said it was great. It was kind of preparing, and it was really popular, and it really prepared those young people for marriage when they were in college. They might not have had a specific person in mind, but it gave them a lot of those tools which can help them out later on when they do find that right person, they do get married. Now here, spouses need to cooperate with grace. How do we build the family? We build the couple, we build society, all of them by cooperating in grace. There's a special role in the first to communicate the faith to kids, and this is to educate them. And education here, and in the church's sense, is not just information. Obviously, information is part of it. You need to know that Jesus is the Son of God, things like that. But it's also way of life and practices, because you see how couples model and how they educate their children by showing them love, and they educate them in how to love. That's not just information. That is practical. And that's an important aspect of this because it's not just A, B, C, D. No, it's the way you live. And finally, parents need to help kids find their vocation. So we need to have parents who are open to other vocations than marriage for their kids, such as priesthood, religious or other consecrated life. Even more rare ones like consecrated virgin in the diocese. Somebody I know who has a friend who I kind of know is kind of like a friend of a friend more than really a friend. They're talking about how this friend of mine is currently studying to be a consecrated virgin in her diocese. And this person, they aren't in the main city of the diocese. They come and stay with my friend whenever they're in town, and to take the certain classes that they need to do that, because the bishop said, hey, you take the same class as the permanent deacons before we do the consecrated virgin, or you become a consecrated virgin, which is reasonably fair on the part of the bishop. And that's an idea. That's an important thing, to have all those different vocations as a possibility for one's kids. So moving on to 11C. 11C is about couples need to witness to the true Christian marriage and fight for it in politics. It has two sentences, which are kind of those two parts, the witness and then the civil society or politics. So let's read it. 11C. It has always been the duty of Christian married partners, but today it is the greatest part of their apostolate, to manifest and prove by their own way of life the indissolubility and sacredness of the marriage bond. Strenuously to reform the right and duty of parents and guardians to educate children in a Christian manner, and to defend the dignity and lawful autonomy of the family. They and the rest of the faithful, therefore, should cooperate with men of goodwill to ensure the preservation of these rights in civil legislation, and to make sure that governments give due attention to the needs of the family regarding housing, the education of children, working conditions, Social Security, and taxes. And then policy decisions affecting migrants, their right to live together as families should be safeguarded. So that first part is important. We need couples to manifest true marriage. I've often said the best argument for marriage and against all the kind of distortion of marriage are couples who have been faithful for a long time. My parents are celebrating almost 50 years right now, somewhere between 45 and 50. I'm not giving you exact details here, but they've been married for a long time and they still love each other, and you still see it in them how they are a happily married couple. And this shows that the bond is sacred and indissoluble. It doesn't just show, oh, it's a nice thing to do, maybe for a decade or something like that. No, this is for life. Over my desk, I'm looking at this. I have pictures of each of my siblings with their spouses, and then my parents together over my desk here. And we also need to have civil law respecting marriage and marriage couples living together well. And sometimes I think Catholics just leave this the most basic thing. Obviously, we need marriage to be one man and one woman, no gay marriage. But there's a lot of other aspects too. There are aspects like, right now we have no-fault divorce. So anybody can say, oh, I'm not happy in irreconcilable differences and get divorced. And with no consequences for being the one who breaks that contract. There's no other contracts in society where if one side just decides unilaterally to break it, they can just break it without any consequences. And the idea would be not to get rid of divorce at all, because divorce does have purposes in our society, even though it can't really break the marriage. But, for example, if a spouse is abusive and the other spouse needs to protect themselves and the kids, getting a divorce to separate them legally from that person is important. We need to allow that. But the idea of eliminating no-fault divorce would be you have to show that they're abusive or that they're cheated or that they abandoned you or something like that. Or you can initiate your own, but then they get the spouse who still wanted to be together and didn't do anything against the marriage contract would get most of the assets and would get choice as far as like do they have the kids or not and things like that. But beyond even that, we have other things. It's mentioned here the idea of migrants so that we can bring whole families in, so we don't force just the person who's working, but they can bring their wife and kids. Well, most often wife, kids, husband and kids, I guess, too, depending on the circumstances. And along with this, one of the things that I think Catholics often miss out on is right now in the U.S., there's a big penalty for disabled people to get married. So a lot of disabled people, they would lose a large portion of their benefits if they got married. And a lot of times they're marrying someone who is going to spend a decent portion of their time helping that person out and may not be the highest income earner. But if they do get married, they often lose certain benefits they have, which between the two of them, they need to live a even basic, moderately comfortable life. And so a lot of disabled people don't get married and just live together with someone who is their partner, quote unquote, or something like that for years, because the laws are such that they would not have enough money to survive realistically if they got married. That's a problem in how we structure this. And obviously, kids have a right to be with their parents who are married and live together. Now moving on to D, the family is unit of society and can do apostolates together. Let's read it. 11D, this mission, to be the first and vital cell of society, the family has received from God. It will fulfill this mission if it appears as the domestic sanctuary of the church by reason of the mutual affection of its members and the prayer that they offer to God in common. If the whole family makes itself part of the liturgical worship of the church, and it provides active hospitality that promotes justice and other good works for the service of all the brethren in need. Among the various activities of the family apostolate may be enumerated the following: the adoption of abandoned infants, hospitality to strangers, assistance in the operation of schools, help, advice, and material assistance for adolescents, help to engage couples in preparing them for better marriage, catechetical work, support of married couples and families involved in material and moral crises, help for the aged, not only providing them with necessities of life, but also by attaining for them a fair share of the benefits of an expanding economy. I think these are pretty straightforward. We have the family as the unit or cell of society. This is something that's important that actually goes against our Western mentality of the individual as the unit of society. No, the church teaches the family. Interestingly, and this came up a little bit in my doctoral thesis, the East, like Confucius, actually has something close to Catholicism in thinking of the family as the unit of society. And this Christian family can live together, should live together, that whole Christian life, prayer, service, loving each other. And there's certain apostolates they can do in that service. Some of those apostolates really require a family or something akin to a family, such as adoption. Whereas other ones can be done by married or single people. A single person can be a catechist, for example, or a married person can be a catechist. Both of them can perfectly fine be a catechist. Now moving on to our last two subparagraphs, E and F. Families should remain faithful and can be brought together. Let's read them. 11E. At all times and places, but particularly in areas where the first seeds of the gospel are being sown or where the church is just being involved in some serious difficulty, Christian families can give effective testimony to Christ before the world by remaining faithful to the gospel and providing a model of Christian marriage through their whole way of life. F. To facilitate the attainment of the goals of their apostolate, it can be useful for families to be brought together into groups. So paragraph 11E is really talking about this idea of witness to the faith. And at times, this witness can even go to martyrdom. It's really interesting. Recently, we had the first time that an unborn baby is going to be beatified because they were a martyr. So there's the Ohm family, who died in 1944, killed by the Nazis in Poland. And they have the parents, and the parents, Joseph and Victoria, hopefully I pronounced that right, with kids who are 7, 6, 5, 4, 2, 1, and then one who was in the womb who was about to be born. And all of them are going to be beatified by the Pope. And so that shows that idea of witness of the families. Now, families can also get together. There's this idea of how to do all these apostolates above as groups of families. I think there's a number of really good apostolates that bring families together. You have Catholic Family and the Apostle for Family Consecration works together as one example. You have Couples for Christ, another example. You have many others that are kind of groups of families working together, which are great for doing all the things that are being talked about above in this paragraph. Thus concludes today. Thank you for listening to this episode of Vatican II in a Year. This is a listener-supported podcast, and you can donate to help StarQuest produce it. Another great podcast at sqpn.com/give. You can give one-time monthly or join the StarQuest Patreon. Tomorrow, we're going to continue with the next paragraph of Apostolicum Exercitatem, which is paragraph 12, on the apostolate of young people. Please join us then to learn more about Vatican II, which provides a blueprint for the Catholic Church. Go to sqpn.com/Vatican, frmatthewlc.com/Vatican, or Vatican SQPN on Facebook and X for more information on the podcast, such as playlists for individual documents and a reading plan. Amen.